again. Good morning. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is April 10th, 2024, and this is case DCI 2022-00049. It is a request to rezone 2.8 acres to the CPD district in the San Carlos planning community. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide is the truth? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. So the way that we're going to proceed today is first we're going to hear from the applicant. They're going to present their request in the case and call any witnesses that they may have in support of that request. Following their presentation, we're going to hear from the county staff. They're going to present their review and recommendation in this case. They are recommending approval with conditions, including the 4 deviations that have been requested. After we hear from the county staff, we're going to hear from the public comment portion. So when I call the public comment, I've got the cards here. So if you'd like to speak today, please be sure that you fill out a card. I'm going to call them in the order that I have them. I also have the cards from the, let me see here, the February 8th hearing. So I'm going to call those too. If you've filled out 2 cards, obviously there's only 1 opportunity to speak. So please just let me know if you could indicate you had already spoken. And if you filled out a card but you don't want to speak, you can just indicate that as well. And then you'll receive a copy of the recommendation as well as the board hearing date once that's set. So because this is a plan development rezoning, my job is to submit a recommendation to the board. They're going to be the final decision makers on this hearing. So there will be another hearing after this one. If you would like to speak at that hearing, you must speak today. And today there's no time limitation on how long that you would like to speak. But at the board hearing, there are time limitations, and you would be limited to the comments that you make here today. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that before you step up to the podium. And one more thing about the public comment, if you've got questions, please ask those. We're going to be taking notes of them, but we don't answer them at the time that they're asked. We're taking note of them, and then after the public comment closes, then it's the applicant and the staff's chance for rebuttal, and they'll address the questions at that time. So just know we are making a note of them, but you won't get an answer right away. And with that, I think that is the extent of my housekeeping. If we can begin with the applicant whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're going to call our first witness, which is Dan Talisi, and present a PowerPoint. Who is it?
Dan Talisi. Can the public hear? Yeah. Maria, can we ask if they can turn up the mics? Thank you.
Sure, it's on.
Yeah. Is it on?
I could hear you, but
Yeah, it doesn't go.
Maybe try that out.
Hello? Okay, that works.
No, there we go.
Does that work?
Yeah.
All right.
thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, could you state your name again? They couldn't hear when Ms. Montgomery introduced you.
For the record, my name is Dan Talisi. I'm a land use planner. I'm here representing the applicant in this case. So I'm going to go through a presentation on the project, a description of the project, what the applicant is intending to do on the site, the master concept plan, and the criteria of review. Then I'm going to have Pete Mostrock come up and talk about the deviations, and then Ted Treesh, transportation, and then I'll sum up with a discussion of the 48-hour memo and staff report. So the subject property is about 2.8 acres. It's located on the west side of US 41, as you said, in the San Carlos planning community in southern Fort Myers. You could see on the aerial, it's just north of the intersection of Old 41. What you can't see on the aerial is it's not that far south of the intersection with 6 Mile Cypress. So as you're going down Old 41, when you do your site visit, you'll see the area and the surrounding community, the type of development in the area, which I'll get into in much more detail in this presentation. There's a mix of heavy commercial uses, the north, south, and the east. There's a car dealership with repair to the east. There's a restaurant and RV dealer with repair to the north. And then to the south again, if you notice on the southwest is the Jonathan's Bay community, where I suspect most people are here from. On the border on the west of the property. They are part of a CPD. They were developed as a commercial plan development where initially it was going to be commercial and or residential where the residential is. The only remaining parts of the commercial plan development are along US 41, and they allow for a myriad of, again, heavy commercial uses, very much similar to what you find along this entire corridor. Auto service, parts, boat repair, car washes, and in fact, I believe there is a development order in process on the south side of this property for a car wash, consistent with that CPD. The requested change is from CN2 to CPD to allow for the proposed use, which is a truck parts store, truck parts dealer with ancillary repair. CN2 allows for, again, a myriad of commercial uses, neighborhood level commercial uses. That's what CN is. Auto parts, automobile service stations, food stores, drug stores, restaurants, groups 1 through 3. So a lot of different types of commercial uses allowed in CN. So it already is a commercial site. The proposed zoning CPD is really just to have this single use, which is the intent of the applicant. The applicant has a property that's located not too far from this site to the east. That's where they do truck repair. They're not planning on moving that site. That's not what this site is for. What they've noticed over time is that they have no presence in the community. That site is tucked within an industrial area, way off of any exposure to US 41. And so the community doesn't know they're there. So what they're trying to do on this site is get a presence that's recognizable in the community and sell truck parts. They're not giving up their other site, so any significant truck repairs are going to continue at the existing site. This site is really for a truck parts store primarily. So like an AutoZone or Napa parts store, that's the type of use they're wanting to do at this property. There may be some ancillary repairs, and again, at AutoZone, there are some minor ancillary repairs. The code does anticipate this, and I'll talk about this more in a moment in LDC 341352, and staff's condition anticipates this too. Repairs are only to be ancillary with this type of use, and in an entirely enclosed building if there are any repairs of any significance. So the way this master concept plan is structured is their truck parts store is in the front on the eastern part of the site with the offices in the back. And if there are any ancillary repairs, it would be the bay doors would have to, by design of this, face east-west, not north-south. So the bay doors would face away from any residential use. The circulation actually makes the site quite ideal because you have two easy means of ingress and egress, so you have a nice flow through the site. They have direct access to US 41. The access then curves north to an unnamed road, which they're going to do some improvements to. So there's a nice flow through with the site where there can be a continuous movement of truck traffic into the site and out.
Is that, I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but I have two questions. The first is, I did do a site visit before this hearing. So is the Skip Seafood immediately north of this site?
It is.
So where it shows the connection, there's the drive essentially that accesses Skip Seafood. Is that what this access point is going to be tying into?
No. This ties into, there's an unnamed road just on the north side of Skip Seafood.
Right, that goes all the way in and it kind of dead ends. It's very industrial looking or heavy commercial in that area. So that's where it's going to tie into that access road, for lack of a better word.
Exactly.
I don't know what the legal status of that is. Okay.
Yeah. And so there is no direct connection with Skip Seafood.
Okay. And then my question, to go back for a second, about the repair, because that obviously was an issue, because auto parts repair is not a permitted use on the schedule of uses. I think staff removed that in their preliminary review. So what does ancillary repair look like? Are we talking like oil changes and minor things of that nature? Where does that line get drawn? Because I would imagine that's the most egregious of the proposed uses that are on here, the most concerning.
That's a great question.
I can ask it later if there's someone else on your team that's better suited. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is it's very minor stuff. This is, windshield wiper, very minor stuff. And in fact, when I talked to the applicant about what types of repairs, it almost sounded like they didn't even need an enclosed area to do it, based on what's allowed in the code. So again, the vast majority of the repairs are going on at their existing site, not at this site. But let me get you a more detailed example.
Okay.
Of that.
Thank you.
And then I just want to draw everyone's attention again to LDC section 341352, which requires, and it's not specific to just this use, it's all auto-related uses, like convenience stores and the like. But this requires additional buffering and setbacks, some site design criteria, if you will. So there's a whole litany of things that are required when you're adjacent to residential uses that are not required with other commercial uses. And all of those things we are incorporating into the site plan. The setbacks weren't difficult at all to adhere to just because of the way the site is designed. Again, to set the uses as far away from the residential as possible. We're putting them to the north and to the east. All right, so the criteria of approval are found in LDC section 34-145. I'm going to go through this in general. So we're in the suburban future land use category that's found in policy 1.1.5 of the Lee plan. These areas are located on the fringe of urban community and central urban. You can see on the map where the central urban is and the urban community, they're all congregated right in this location. And you get the feel of that when you go down US 41. You find suburban in areas with major roadway corridors like this. I'm thinking State Road 80, back before Estero Incorporated along Corkscrew Road, US 41 down there, suburban land use category, and so you see a lot of commercial uses along the major roadway corridors and then the residential back behind there. That's what the Lee plan aims for. So it does allow for commercial uses, and it's not a debate whether there should be commercial. It already is zoned commercial. Objectives 2.1 and 2.2 deal with development location, promoting development in urban areas and where urban services exist. As you know, there are urban uses all around the site. So this is an infill development. There are not a lot of vacant commercial properties or properties at all in the area. There are a few, of course, just to the west and south of here. But there is development all around the site. Policy 5.1.5 deals with compatibility with residential. I'm going to talk about, I've already talked about that a little bit, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but again, I would direct you to LDC section 341352, which requires enhanced landscaping, buffering, and design for auto-related uses. Policy 6.1.1 deals with evaluation criteria for commercial uses, whether or not transportation facilities are in place to serve the development, adequate buffering, public services, and proximity to similar centers. We have conducted a TIS. Ted will get up and talk about that in a moment. The buffering I'll get into in a little bit more detail. Public services are available to the site. And there are other parts, service, and auto dealers all along the corridor, not specifically for trucks, which is a very valuable use for the community and the development and job base of this community. But similar uses are in the area, which is what makes this a good site for this use. You know, just across the street, across US 41, is the Jaguar and Range Rover dealership, which also has service. Just north of the site, on the north side of Skip 1, and the north side of that unnamed road is a boat and RV dealer that also, according to the website, does service. So when you go up and down the corridor, you see a lot of boat dealers, RV dealers, car dealers that sell parts, sell old vehicles, and do service as well. Policy 6.1.4 has commercial approval standards, deals with compatibility and urban services. Again, I've talked about both of those issues. And then just for a moment, I want to talk about goal 151. In the revised request statement that we had submitted with the 48-hour memo, I specifically addressed policies 158.4.1 and 158.4.9, and they direct the county to promote small businesses, which this is, to retain and encourage small businesses, and also promote economic development within the county. And as you know, the industrial base of Lee County needs trucks. Trucks are part of our job-based growth, and so a truck parts store is a valuable use in the community, one that we don't have many of. So we implement, I believe, goal 158 as well. Let me just hone in a little bit more on surrounding uses and compatibility. Again, I talked about this before, but we have similar uses north and south along the corridor, east and west of US 41. Similar uses are permitted in the CPD to the south of us. And then the real compatibility, the part of compatibility that we're really trying to address in the site planning and design is to ensure that we don't have any impacts to the residential, which is to the southwest. So we've looked at the buffer area specifically to the residential. That is where you have to have an enhanced buffer. And that area is highlighted in red, and you can see a cross section that we did that shows the physical location of the closest residential structure and what the view corridors would be. Now, these are two-story townhomes, so you know, someone standing on the first floor, it's easy to understand what they would and wouldn't see. It's hard for someone to see over an 8-foot wall, and given the elevations of the site, that 8-foot wall is higher than the elevation of where someone would be standing, or about the same, but you can't see over an 8-foot wall. It's the second floor that we've been showing the line of sight to, and at maturity, the line of sight into the property is obscured through the vegetation. You can see a building for sure. From a second story of a residential structure, you'll definitely be able to see into the site, into a building, but you're not going to see the activity on site. That's something that'll be obscured by the buffer and the vegetation. And we do this by both distance setbacks and landscaping on the wall. So on the Jonathan's Bay side, you have 40 feet. What this section shows is 40 feet of vegetation and buffer area, which includes their drainage ditch on what is the left side of the property line. And then we have our perimeter berm, our drainage ditch, and then our landscape buffer, which will grow in over time and it has to be planted on the residential side of the wall. And then you have the wall, and then of course we have additional setback area of the buildings because you have the driveway in between the two.
And that building that you're showing, that's the one that's labeled the one-story truck dealer and storage?
That's correct.
So that building would have lower impact activity, is the idea in the site plan, than the larger building that's closer to 41?
So that is so that's shown with a building top elevation of 42 feet. That may have the bay doors for any service activities that would happen. And those bay doors, if they even occur, would be, if you can kind of make it out on the plan, it'd be at the northern side facing east-west. So you'd see the side of the building.
So the bay doors would be on the truck dealer and storage building as well, or is that just on the truck parts store?
The truck parts store is the one at the front side of the...
On the far east, correct. So this building, though, that you're showing the line of sight, that aligns with the one that's labeled the truck dealer and storage. So that would be predominantly like I'm assuming that's going to be dead storage, or do they need bay doors on that building?
I believe that,
Pete, introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Pete Mostrick, civil engineer for the applicant. I believe the repair, correct me if I'm wrong, will occur in that westerly building on the north half of the building with the bay doors facing east and west.
Okay.
Whatever repairs are going to be done.
That I misunderstood then. I thought that the original testimony was that the repair was going to be limited to the building closer to 41 to minimize the impacts to the residents.
No, the truck parts store is the 41.
Okay, and the actual repair is occurring in the other dealer and storage building.
Yeah, so to the extent that there is repair, it'd be at the northern end of the site. If you see that little white line that comes in on the concept plan, here, let me see if I can just get an arrow and show you.
While he's taking a break, Neil Montgomery, for the record, let me just interject that there'll be no tire changes, no air guns, all repairs will be indoors, things like oil changes and other minor repairs, and no major engine work.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a copy of the presentation as well in hard copy that I could
sorry,
view?
yes,
Yeah, that's okay. I've been referring to the screen, but if I had a hard copy, that would make it a little easier. Thank you. So that'll be applicant's exhibit 1. Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Excuse me, we really can't hear him speaking.
Okay. I don't know if there's a way.
I'm having a harder time hearing
Oh,
you, too.
Okay, you can't hear? We're still having hearing problems?
If I move over, I can see you and lip read, but I can't hear you.
No one can hear. Okay. So, Maria, can we deal with?
Is it me that they're having trouble
I
No,
hearing?
hear all
you're
the
loud,
mics.
you're fine.
It sounds like all the mics. They were saying they can't hear him. The public is saying they can't hear Mr. DeLisi's testimony, so I'm going to see if they can adjust the mics.
Oh, now you're going to be in trouble because there's a sign that says don't talk.
It's on.
It says, it looks like it's on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if it's angled like this, it should be good.
Okay.
Can you make her louder? Can you make Amanda louder?
Yeah, I'm having a review.
Everyone, this one is the mic. I
And we
think. I
can
don't know.
adjust volume back there.
And hers?
And this
We
one
can adjust
also?
volume back there.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't
Well, I'll
turn
just-
the
yeah.
microphones.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everyone's indulgence too with the sound system. We want to get that right. I'll project as loud as I possibly can and we'll keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to be clear, and if you see the arrow, this is where we're looking at for any bay doors, if you have any bay doors that would open up and allow a vehicle to go in for any indoor repairs that would be required. So the bay doors would be facing east-west, not north-south towards any residential. They'd be at the northern part of the site, away from the residential. But again, the main reason for having this site is not for repair. So the idea with visibility along 41 is to have the parts store right on 41 so that they can have the presence in the community that they're looking for, so that they can have the exposure. And then those minor repairs that Neil just mentioned that are very limited, to the extent that they would occur, would be at the northernmost part of the western building. Okay, so the next criteria is access. As I mentioned before, we have 2 points of access. Excuse me. One direct on US 41 and the other to the north to the unnamed road. It provides good circulation through the site. And so we do have adequate access. Environmental, this is a flux map that was included with the environmental analysis. The site is predominantly pine flatwoods of varying levels of exotic infestation. There's not anything rare or unique on the subject property. There is a small part of this brown area, or part of this brown area to the north is potentially a wetland, 0.4 acres. We do have the environmental consultant here to talk about that to the extent that it comes up in later discussions. But again, nothing environmentally critical on the subject property. And with that, I will hand it over to Pete to talk about the deviations.
Good morning.
Morning. Again, Pete Mostrick, civil engineer for the applicant. Dan, how do I forward your slides?
Arrow.
Okay. Okay. For this CPD, we are requesting 4 deviations. And the first one is fairly simple. It's a deviation which has to do with buffering of adjacent properties of different uses. In this particular case, on this property, we have an existing cross-access and utility easement that we obviously can't get rid of. It serves the property to the south. So that we attempted to contact the owner to the south to see if he wanted to vacate that. He declined. So that easement stays. So what we've done is provided a buffer immediately north and along that easement between the buildings, the parking, and the stormwater and the rest of the site, which is obviously the best we can do given the cross-access easement location and the requirement for providing access to the property to the south. That's deviation number 1. Deviation number 2, which pertains to Land Development Code 34-1748, which typically requires a turnaround on the egress side of a gate. In this particular case, we've provided an access not only to the property to the south, but an access by the property around for a connection to...
Can you advance the slide? I think
Oh, I'm
they're
sorry.
not seeing the, thank you.
We've provided an access that allows people that are entering the site on that road to continue around to the back of the property for connection to the unnamed road. In addition, if anybody was to attempt to access the site itself, we've widened out the aprons at the gates in order to allow people, anybody pulling in there, to simply veer back into the widened access aisle, and they can continue on to the back of the property for connection onto the unnamed road.
Where are the gates? That was mentioned a few times in the narrative, but I didn't see them on the master concept plan.
The gates are actually in between the access road and the parking lot and building. So there's a gate that essentially for each of the parking lots.
I'm sorry, can
I'm
you?
not sure where your mouse is. Oh. Right, whoops. Right there and there. I don't know how I back out of that.
Okay, so I'm unclear on that. So the idea, it's open to the public, the truck park store, but it's going to be gated. So who?
It'll be gated and closed during non-business hours. During business hours, when it is open to the public, the gate will be open.
For the two parking areas that you just denoted, but the other parking area would not be gated?
It would be gated, but that's not public access. It would be gated during non-business hours, but.
I'm asking about the parking area that's to the west of the other building.
Right, that will be gated.
So that will, but you're not showing it on the screen. So where will that?
Oh, no, it's here. Whoops. That'll be gated as well.
Okay, so the proposed sliding gate, okay, that is on here. So that essentially runs the entirety.
There's a fence along the entirety, and there's 3 sliding gates.
Okay.
One at the entrance to each of the parking lots.
Okay, and then do you know what the business hours will be?
I believe 8 to 5.
Yeah, 85.
8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week?
Yep, not 7 days a week, I imagine.
No, 6 a week.
6 days a week, Monday through Saturday.
Okay. Thank you. You can continue.
In any case, that was deviation number 2. Deviation 3 pertains to the parking lot interconnections. I think you alluded to that earlier. We are providing a connection to the vacant lot to the northwest to satisfy the requirement for LDC 10610E, but the Skip One Seafood to the northeast, we are requesting a deviation from that requirement to make a connection to that parking lot due to the fact that that property was developed. Well, first of all, that property already has connection to the unnamed road. Secondly, the property was developed without the vision of ever making a connection to anybody in the future. So given the configuration of the location of their building, the configuration of the parking lot, the size of their drive aisle, which none of this meets land development code, and the elevation of that existing parking lot, we would have to, just for starters, make very significant modifications to their site in order to make that connection. And given the fact that they've already got a connection to the unnamed road, we're requesting a deviation from that requirement. And then finally, deviation number 4 pertains to LDC section 10296, which requires the improvement of public roads and making connection to public roads. Quite simply, given the right-of-way width or lack thereof, the existing conditions of the, I'm sorry, I thought we had a picture of that. I do actually, in the deviation request that was provided, it shows, for starters, at some point many years ago, Skip One Seafood actually obtained either a limited review development order or some sort of a development order to allow for part of their parking lot to actually sit within the right-of-way of the unnamed road. So their parking lot and their facilities rely on the use of that right-of-way, and therefore the improvements that we can make to that right-of-way are very limited because of that, as well as these existing ditches. So we are requesting a deviation to allow for, I believe what we're looking to do is 2 11-foot lanes, travel lanes, And we are, of course, providing a sidewalk on our property, but there simply isn't any place to put a sidewalk in the right-of-way that exists without infringing upon Skip One Seafood's parking configuration and the existing drainage ditch that runs along the north side of the unnamed road, as well as any sidewalk we would have to do would also impact the RV dealership to the north, and it would require probably modifications to their site in general. And again, in my deviation request, I detailed our request in quite a bit more detail. Did you have any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Who do we have next?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ted Shreesh with TR Transportation Consultants. We prepared the traffic impact analysis as part of this application. On the screen is the anticipated trip generation that we included in the analysis that was reviewed by staff as part of the application. There is a memo from staff as part of the staff report. The analysis showed that 41 will operate with an acceptable level of service that meets the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan requirements. Staff agrees, along with our analysis, that there's no adverse impacts to the transportation system. The application from the transportation perspective is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and land development code. As Pete indicated and Dan indicated, the site has 2 access drives. We did have a pre-application meeting with the Florida Department of Transportation with regards to our access request to US 41. They didn't have any objection to that. That will be a right-in, right-out access to US 41. So that access will be permitted through FDOT at the time of local development order. The only thing I wanted to address in terms of the staff report, there was a condition that was carried through the transportation memo that seems to be coming up more recently that I wanted to address. There was a condition, it's condition 3, that talks about, and I think it's just a redundant condition. I don't think they need to be in the staff report because I believe our land development code covers everything in terms of protections, in terms of how these projects move forward. Condition 3 reads, development intensity is limited to new trips generated by 17,000 square foot automobile parts and service use as estimated by the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual current at time of local development order. And I don't disagree with the statement, but it's redundant. I mean, the ordinance that's going to be approved lists a schedule of uses. It lists the maximum square footage that is permitted as part of this development. When this project goes forward for a development order, they have to be consistent with the master concept plan and the ordinance and the maximum square footage. We have to do another traffic study pursuant to the current requirements at development order, whatever time that is. And we have to follow the codes and requirements of Lee County for that traffic study. And so there is no longer, as you are aware, transportation concurrency in Lee County. The state dropped that requirement in 2011, and the county followed suit. So there's no, the county doesn't, in essential, take account trip generation in terms of specific projects. They do monitor the trip generation and the impacts of the projects on the roads, but it's not a regulatory requirement in terms of getting the projects approved. So this condition, in our opinion, and we're seeing it in more cases, is in our opinion redundant and really not needed because the Land Development Code takes into account and protects the projects as they move forward. And what happens is ITE changes. We're on the 11th edition right now. It's always, in fact, ITE has now come up with an electronic version. It's changing even, it's almost a live edition. The trip generation is changing as data is inputted into ITE continuously. So the trip generation of projects changes. I may go do a trip generation report next year for a project that I did this week, and it may be a little different than what I did last year based on data that ITE received and inputted into their database. But we use that data, that's what Lee County requires us to analyze, and then we utilize that data to do a trip generation analysis that goes into our report. We analyze the impacts to the road system, the turn lane requirements pursuant to the administrative code. But there's no trip cap or anything in the land development code that says developments are limited to this number of trips. What the development is limited to is what the ordinance says. It's the square footage, the schedule of uses. That's what limits the development. So, you know, our opinion is that this language is just redundant and really not needed. So I just wanted to put that on the record as we move forward. But everything else, we're in agreement with staff in terms of the impacts. This project has good access. As you can see from the trip generation, it's not a heavy trip generation use. This type of use is trips are spread throughout the day. It's not a heavy peak hour generator. Even though it's a truck service and repair facility, we don't anticipate a lot of trucks in and out of this facility. It's more smaller vehicles coming in and out, getting those parts going, taking those parts to other facilities to get those trucks repaired. So that's really all the comments I have at this time. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
My only question on the TIS was that the use that you had to use from the ITE manual was for auto parts and service, because
Yes.
I think it said that there isn't one for trucks.
No, there's
Do you anticipate, or since it's an operating business, do you know if they have any information on what the actual trip counts are for a truck use versus an auto parts? Would you expect it to be more or less? Or is this a pretty accurate prediction?
I don't have that information, and that's certainly something you could ask the applicant, but compared to like an auto zone, something like that, I would think that use might be a little bit higher just because it's more of a retail type establishment that's, from my experience, those facilities get a little bit higher traffic volume because they have a much more broad type of product that they allow that they have in their facilities, where this is a little more specialized type facility that services more of a limited type vehicle, where AutoZone, those type of facilities service obviously a much larger market in terms of autos and trucks, you know, passenger trucks, that type of thing, where this is more of your larger trucks and so forth. So, but the applicant might have a little more detailed information on that than I would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to make a couple clarifications. Dirk, sorry. Just a couple quick clarifications. So what the applicant is currently doing on their existing site is not what they're proposing on this site. They're currently a truck repair, and they do all sorts of repairs on their current site. That's going to remain. What they're proposing is more similar to an AutoZone, but Ted is right, it's more specialized than an AutoZone, which has a broader group of people. So even what they see currently on their site with trips is not going to be representative of what you would see on this site, which is much more retail oriented. Just to get you clarification on the types of repairs that they're looking at, manual repairs, anything you would do manually, so an oil change, windshield wiper replacement, they might do a water hose replacement, again that's manual repair, interior cleaning of a vehicle, I think the most mechanical you'd have is a vacuum cleaner, again, very small stuff. We're not looking at air guns. This isn't a big tire change facility or anything like that. That's their existing site where they would send those people. Again, this is a retail site where they're trying to get a presence on US 41. As far as the staff report goes, we're in agreement with the staff report and conditions except for condition 3, as Ted just outlined. We have submitted a revised project request statement, just for the record. Staff had asked us to do that. And then finally, I just want to, again, make it clear that staff has included a condition that any repairs be indoor. We've tried to design the site so that those doors are facing not towards the residential, but away from the residential, located as far on the site to the north as possible. Staff's condition includes the completely indoors, a limitation on the number, storage indoors, and compliance with LDC section 34-1351 and 1352, which you can read and review, but it has all sorts of requirements on what you can have stored outdoors, what needs to be enclosed, what types of landscape buffer, setback requirements, etc. So, and all of that applies to auto repair service sale when you're adjacent to residential.
On the condition about the service bays, it's limited to the number. It limits to 3 for the entire development, but it doesn't talk about the orientation. So is that something that applicant's agreeable to if it's a condition is added? And I guess
Certainly.
the testimony was that that's what the box is meant to indicate on the master concept plan, but it just shows that that's a delivery area. So it's not, I guess it's implied, but it's not specifically stated if that.
Yeah, the way this is designed, that's the only location where you could have them. So yes, that is okay for condition.
And then did you say that you had someone to speak about the jurisdictional wetlands or the potential? The one thing that was, I noticed in the request statement, the original request statement did make reference to Goal 101 because we're in the coastal high hazard, and the revised did not. So I don't know if there's, I don't have specific concerns about that with the site and the development, but just something on the record.
Yeah, we are in the coastal high hazard area, to be quite frank. I didn't even realize that until yesterday. So this is not a residential area, so the evacuation isn't really an issue. So I did not include it within my lead plan analysis. I think staff had reached out yesterday to talk to me about something which they'll address, and we'll have more discussion about that today.
Okay.
And if we need to hear from the environmental consultant, we can. We weren't up until yesterday planning on having them testify. They weren't included in the 48-hour memo, but staff noted, a wetland in the coastal hazard area, and so if you want testimony on that, we're happy to provide it.
Okay. I'm okay for now.
Okay.
If we can come back. Thank you. Did that conclude the applicant's presentation?
For the case in chief, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We do
Thank you.
believe there'll be rebuttal.
Yes. Thank you. Whenever staff is ready to proceed. Thank you. So I will accept the staff PowerPoint as Staff Exhibit 2. Staff Exhibit 1 is the staff report.
I'm sorry, what was staff exhibit 1?
The staff report.
Okay.
Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes, good morning. For the record, Dirk Danley, Lee County Zoning. I'm a principal planner with Lee County Community Development. I've been previously accepted as an expert witness and the Land Development Code and Lead Plan, and would like to do so again today?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'll try not to overlap too much with the applicant's presentation, but wanted to make sure the record was complete and clear on our end from staff and how we reviewed the case today. And at the end, we'll have just a brief discussion about that coastal high hazard conversation Dan and I had yesterday. As the applicant's already stated, this is a request to rezone a property from CN2, which is neighborhood commercial, to commercial plan development, to allow 17,000 square feet of commercial uses, including truck parts, sales, truck sales, and repair, ancillary. This is the subject property. This is the master concept plan that's already been brought up by the applicant. Just to superimpose them together, this is what the development would look like at time of construction. As you can see, the applicant did bring up Skip One Seafood to the north. There is a parcel between Skip One Seafood and then the little remnant piece that connects our subject property to the unnamed road. That will still have that commercial interconnection requirement. We'll talk about deviations later, but just while we're looking at it, I wanted to make sure that it was noted that there's actually 2 parcels there. So there's a potential for development on that empty vacant parcel behind Skip One. Oh, and it should probably be brought up as well. We talked a little bit about the easement in our staff report and in the staff's or applicant's presentation. But if you run here and then it kind of hooks here, is a required access easement on the subject property, which is supposed to connect to the commercial tract to the south. That is intended to stay there, and they've worked the site to basically coexist with that easement, and that's why their driveway is where it is today. But it is intended to connect to that southern piece whenever it is developed.
Is that the piece that's in for a car wash, I believe, was the testimony?
I'm not entirely sure what's there today for a development order. They've gone through several iterations of development plans on that property, and nothing's been constructed as of yet. But it would be important to note that the applicant was accurate that there are heavy commercial uses that are permitted on that site from the existing resolution. We'll go through the same decision-making criteria that the applicant went through just to provide our input on how this meets the decision-making criteria for a plan development. I won't reiterate them because the applicant has gone through them.
Back that up.
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. But just to differentiate between the two, this is conventional, or the decision-making criteria for all zoning districts or for all rezonings. The second piece is specific to planned developments. So they would have to meet all of these criteria. And really the only differentiation is just talking about the appropriateness of the mix of uses based on this location, safeguards for the public interests, and then just criteria for decision or criteria for deviations as well. Okay. The applicant briefly brought up land development code compliance. I wanted to talk through some of it, and we had a discussion earlier on that automotive repair and service as well. I want to put a little bit on the record for that. So auto parts store, the building to the east, which is up against 41, that really fits into the definition of what an auto parts store is. It's a typical retail establishment, similar, as the applicant stated, to something like an AutoZone, just specific to truck repair or truck uses. And then the rear building to the west, the applicants noted that that was intended to be more of the dealer type use. I believe that there's display intended in front of the retail building closer to 41, but the back building is supposed to be kind of all the ancillary functions of the retail or of the dealer, including the service bays that were discussed by the applicant. Now, staff during the review recommended the removal of the uses automotive repair and service, groups 1 and 2, simply because that would allow for this site to principally function as an automotive repair and service. They could make some changes administratively to the site plan or master concept plan, and that use could technically overrun the site with just primarily repair. The way we understood this use to be is this is really supposed to be a retail type of use with truck sales, truck part sales, and ancillary repair. So the way that we approached it was really just limiting the footprint to where repair can take place, and that's why we went with 3 service bays. We had a discussion through the review to see where they thought what number was going to be appropriate so that they could have some ancillary repair. And there's already been testimony. It's not even entirely certain that there will be repair. They just wanted to be able to provide that option on the site. And so that's why we went with the approach of limiting it to 3 service bays so it can't be a principally repair type use. That being said, the definition of vehicle and equipment dealers includes repair as part of that. And so that's how they're able to still complete that repair component. The applicant did bring up 341351. That does require all repair to be taken place inside of a building. And so the applicant is aware of that requirement, and that's what the service bays are intended to facilitate. And with the discussion about the east-west facing, staff's also in agreement that that's probably an appropriate condition in case there are any changes to the site plan through the administrative process, that there isn't a way to reorient those bays in a way that would become incompatible with the neighboring uses. And then the applicant did speak about 341352 with the automotive retail components that require additional setbacks, buffers, and everything else. Staff is of the opinion that they've met those requirements on their master concept plan, and we didn't have any other further discussion on that. The applicant's already gone through this, but just to speak a little bit more, the future land use category here is suburban. What's notable, and the line that staff has really been working with the applicant to overcome, is the suburban language specifically prohibits industrial uses. This is what they're proposing is a heavier commercial use, and so we have to be careful while we're doing our review to make sure we're not really approving an industrial use. That was another reason why that automotive repair and service group 2 specifically was requested to be taken off, because it is a heavy commercial use with body work and other things that we just really didn't want to proliferate throughout the site as it evolved. So with the reduction of the uses, with the buffers that are provided, and with the scale of the project and the limitation on the number of bays, we feel like we're able to make the testimony that this is a commercial use and not an industrial use, being consistent with this plan. Objectives 2.1 and 2.2 speak to encouraging growth where the right infrastructure exists. This is a heavily used commercial corridor. There are similar uses as the applicant stated. There's just the north boat, I believe boat sales and repair. Just north of that is RV sales and repair. So this really runs in line with a series of uses that are very similar to it. The applicants also stated that to the east, there are actually several car dealerships along that corridor as well. So this really is something that is characteristic of what you experience as you drive down this corridor. In terms of urban services, there are several ready to go for the site. There would be water and sewer. I believe that there's transit on site as well, or along 41 as well. In terms of policy 5.1.5, this policy is really intended to protect residential uses from the encroachment of uses that may be incompatible or damaging to the neighborhood. We went through the process of reviewing this case to ensure that was minimal, that any neighborhood or residential uses nearby were minimally impacted. It's part of the reason why we removed some of those uses, limited the number of service bays to really create a scale that this project could evolve to, and no further beyond at that point. So we tried to really set some lines to allow the use without becoming damaging to the surrounding uses. And so staff finds that we are consistent with this policy as well. Goal 6, specifically policy 6.1.1, 6.1.4, 6.1.6, and 6.1.7, really just speak to commercial development as it evolves and as it is developed, meeting certain criteria. A lot of these overlap with the decision-making criteria in the land development code. It's of staff's opinion that they are consistent with these requirements. They did provide this for rezoning. Now, a lot of this will have to be demonstrated again at time of development order after the zoning's been considered. Goal 125 speaks to water quality in terms of meeting water quality standards and for both ground and surface water. The applicant has provided a narrative with that, they provided a surface water narrative within the application materials. And staff's of the opinion they are meeting these requirements. They will have to also meet state requirements at the time of development order approval. Staff's opinion is that they are meeting these goals, or this goal. And then goal 158, the applicant did bring up the economic component to it. I won't go too much in detail on that, but this is a use that will produce jobs. It's part of the growing economy of Lee County, and we do find them consistent with this goal as well. Just to hash out the deviation discussion with some highlights so we can see it. Deviation 1 is just specific to buffering requirement. That easement that's intended to provide connection to the south prohibits required landscape buffering. And so really what they're doing is providing it along here so that that easement is not impacted by required landscaping. And so with that, staff was recommending approval of that requirement. The second one, was about the gates that we discussed. These were the two gates that the applicant is requesting this deviation from. And we did recommend approval of the apron design that provides that ability to do some turnaround here after hours. The third deviation was about the connection separation, or the interconnection to Skip One Seafood. It's of our opinion that, as the applicants accurately stated, there's really no effective way to connect to the site, and that the no-name road really facilitates the same purpose, because those commercial interconnections are really intended to minimize the use of the larger system. So there's no requirement to get onto 41 to connect to those sites. You can use the no-name road. And then deviation 4 was just retrofitting that no-name road with a sufficient amount of pavement material between the access point for the site and 41 to create a safe condition while working within the constraints of the subject, or of that property as well. Wanted to talk briefly about the coastal high hazard and just the discussion that Dan brought up briefly at the end of his presentation, but this is in the coastal high hazard area. There's a policy, 101.3.2, which restricts development within coastal high hazard areas to uplands only. Staff does want to request to leave the record open. We've had a handful of cases since this one originally was considered that have come to pass where we now have some canned language that just ensures compliance with.
I'm sorry. The applicant interposes an objection to that at this point in time. Administrative Code 2-6, Section 2.2G says that any additions to the staff report must be provided 48 hours prior to the hearing on this issue. And what I submit, based on what I know, and not very much since I didn't hear about it till yesterday evening, is inconsistent with how that policy has been applied. And I would submit that that policy is implemented through Chapter 6, Article 4, and to suggest a condition that we don't have notice of and that is a new and different interpretation inconsistent with the LGC and the rest of that policies under that goal, I think is inappropriate at this point in time.
And the language that you would be proposing, would it be limiting the development in any way, or is it a recognition of its location within the coastal high hazard?
It's really just a recognition of it being a coastal high hazard. We're not intending to put it on the record today. This was really an intent to provide a complete record for you and your review. And that's why we request to leave the written record open to have that discussion with the applicant moving forward.
So in this case, I don't find it to be a supplement to the staff report. It was in the applicant's narrative originally. There was mention of goal 101, and the applicant provided some information, but it wasn't sufficiently detailed. And so if we're just leaving the record open, I can leave that open for a period of time. Staff can prepare language, applicant can oppose it. It doesn't mean it's going to be adopted, but I would appreciate more information in my record for my review of coastal high hazard because it was not in the original staff report.
Yeah, well, and if you're going to leave the record open, you have to leave the record open to afford due process. We have no due process at this point in time. They have, in 2 other instances, as I understand it, at the last minute, brought this policy up and suggested conditions. If you look at Objective 101.3, developing coastal areas, it starts off by saying it's to protect human life and property from disasters. And when you read the section as a whole, it's to protect people and buildings. Well, there's a lot of other provisions of the LGC and the comp plan that come into play, and the site will be elevated. And as you know, coastal high hazard is strictly an elevation issue. So when you elevate the site, it will be elevated out of the coastal high hazard. And you can see, if you look at the coastal hazard map, you can see, sites down there at Iona where it's in the coastal high hazard, but individual buildings and things aren't in it because they've been elevated out of that. And there's lots of, again, Chapter 6, Article 4 is designed to deal with all the FEMA and the federal issues, and we will have to comply with that and most likely have to do an additional analysis as required by that. So I have a
understand.
concern.
I don't know the other cases that you're talking about because I haven't had this come up in my cases yet, but for my purposes, it was a question I had when I was reviewing it because I was curious why the applicant addressed it but then didn't address it on the 48. So it sounds to me like staff is simply looking to supplement information. If there's a condition, it doesn't sound like there's warranting
It's
for a
the
condition.
condition to be included that we haven't seen. That's the part of that bullet that causes my concern. I'm happy to have additional information. I'm not happy to have a condition I haven't seen and may not be able to have due process.
I understand, and I will address this issue. I'm not going to resolve it in this exact moment. We'll resolve it today, certainly before the end of hearing, but I appreciate both of your positions. Was there anything further on this slide for now?
Not on this slide.
Okay.
So just to speak briefly on those decision-making criteria, the applicant did provide a complete lead plan analysis, and we find that this request is consistent with the lead plan. In terms of meeting the land development code and other applicable county regulations, we find that for the case of this review, they are meeting 341351 and 341352, as well as all the required buffer requirements and open space requirements in Chapter 10. We do find that this is compatible with the existing and planned uses in the surrounding area to the north and east, and the enhanced buffers as required by code to the south. We find that they're also compatible with those surrounding uses. There is sufficient access to the property, and that moving forward, they'll have to work with the FDOT to mitigate those impacts to the roadway system, although there likely will not be any significant improvements other than what's on the no-name road moving forward. In terms of not adversely impacting environmental and critical or sensitive areas, with the exception of the remaining 101.3.2 that we just discussed, they are meeting the requirements of Chapter 10. We find that they meet this criteria, and then in terms of the appropriate urban services, we find that they are meeting that as well. And with that, staff does recommend approval of the rezoning request as conditioned, and we're here with any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I asked them as I went through. Did applicant have any questions of the staff?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take a brief break before we open public comment so everyone can stretch their legs. We'll take about a 10-minute break. It is 10:11, so we'll resume at 10:20. Start the public comment portion. As I mentioned before, I'm going to call the cards in the order that I have them. At the end, I will call the cards from the first hearing. So if you're here and you wish to speak, just come forward when I call your name. If you are here but you did not want to speak, you can indicate that from your chair and I'll make a notation. I did see some people walk in after I administered the oath. So if you did not take the oath when you got here, please let me know that so that I can administer it before you begin making your comments. So the first card that I have is for Jamie Duffy. Yes, ma'am. Did you wish to speak? No? Okay, thank you. The next one is for Ron Tubb. Good morning, sir.
Morning. Concerns I have are more environmental concerns. We have a lot of species, a lot of animals that are in that, we live in the zone, or right behind the, where the wetlands are, and we have seen bobcats back there, we have eagles back there, we have, a lady mentioned that she saw a panther back there, which I can't confirm that, I haven't seen it myself, but that's an endangered species, and that act was passed in 1973. It's been around for a long time. And if these studies need to be carried out to the fullest to make sure that if there are endangered species back there, that this is going to have a major impact on their survival. And so that's the concern that I would have there. And the Environmental Protection Agency Act that has been passed back in, I don't know the exact date, but anyway, but these are things that are very concerning to me, and this is definitely going to have an impact on, on their survival of these, of the animals back there. So, my concern is that this needs to be stopped, or there needs to be more research to make sure that there's not going to be an impact on the environment. So that's my 10 cents.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today, sir.
Thanks.
The next card I have is for Malene, and let's see, I'm so sorry, and I will apologize now. I am notoriously bad at getting these names correct. I promise you I am giving it my best shot. Gregorian. Are they here? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
My wife, she stepped out to take a potty break.
Okay. Okay. Did you want to speak to, your name is on here too, I believe, sir. Did you want to speak?
She's probably got something to say.
Okay.
I'm not sure where she got it.
That is probably wise for your marriage. I will put this back and I'll put you at a different point of the list. The next one I have is for Christine Termilliger. Oh gosh, I know I got that wrong. Oh, I did. Okay, thank you. Good morning. Oh, thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Terwilliger, and I am from Jonathan's Bay, the residential area right next to them. I too I was going to bring up the environmental impact, but since somebody did that already, I will leave those. So I am going to try and address some of the things that were brought up. Please bear with me, I am not a professional, and there was a lot of information there. So one of the things that they brought up was they were equating this with like the auto zones and the boat repairs. So the auto zone does service. It's not major repairs. These are diesel trucks. These are industrial trucks. This is not automobiles. It's not basic oil changes. I have an issue with them having 3 bays, how many mechanics are going to be working on site at any given day. And I don't usually equate windshield wiper changes having to be done inside in a bay. The other thing that they brought up as an example of these kind of repairs is the boat repair places. There are 3 boat repair places. None of them are actually by a residential area, and we live there, so it's a residential area. We live right next door. All of the major repairs that are done at those boat places are mobile. They do not do those boats in the facilities. They are mobile for major repairs. All right, so then another thing that was brought up, and it seems like there's some contention over this, is the coastal impact. I was there during Ian. If you've seen the structure right there, it's a kind of a U. I'm in the front of the U, so I actually have kind of a front yard. My front yard was flooded. So I have direct, and I did take the oath, I have direct knowledge that during a hurricane, even though we're towards the end of it, our land was flooded in front. That is adjacent to where they would be. They are also talking, we are elevated from what it is now. I know they are talking about elevated, but it almost seems like they are elevating, based on what I could understand, that they are elevating above skip one. And so I wonder if it's even above us. Does that mean there will be retaining walls? And will that, in fact, more flooding for us? Because I saw parking lots that were below, like, structures being basically filled with water, and the cars drowned during the end. So, you know, water levels got very high, even across the street. There were buildings that were severely damaged, not just by wind, but by water. I think, right, and like I said, with the environmental, that is a real concern, because we do have many wildlife that is there even behind them. And so if you did get high waters, which again, we did, I would think that that would be a real concern. And I didn't hear any environmental impact studies pertaining to that. We are residents. We have elderly people. We have children. We have so many people in our community who will be impacted with this. It's just, I find it kind of unfathomable that we are even considering putting this is a repair. They are putting bays in for repair for again, a diesel industrial truck. So I don't know why it's even being considered for changing with all the deviations that they want, why you would change the rules. But I don't think anybody here, including any of you, would want this next to your home. And we don't want it next to ours. So we really do hope that you take our considerations and, look at it very seriously. And again, address some of these issues, because I would like to know the answers to them. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you
for coming today. The next card I have is for Robert Hogue. Is Robert in the room? No, you didn't want to speak today? Thank you, sir. Marcia Hogue? No. Jolynn Allen? No. Mark Phillips? Daryl Freeman? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a resident of Jonathan's Bay, and I am opposed to this simply because of what I feel is going to be the noise factor, especially for the buildings very closely to that. There's people that live upstairs, the condos are upstairs. I'm concerned about the noise. As far as ancillary repairs, I'm like, how long and what exactly is that, and how long is that going to be before, oh, you're getting an oil change? let's just do your tires too. And then we're hearing air guns and everything else. When anybody's came for any type of development and the other properties, they've always come and talked to us and wanted to get our opinions on something. Nobody's ever approached us. The board has never been approached on this, and that just kind of tells me they don't really care what we think. But I would really, as far as retail, that sounds fine to me, but the repair part, I'm not, I just think it's going to eventually turn into more than just oil changes and windshield wipers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. The next card I have, we are back to Malene Gregorian. Are you back in the room? Did you want to speak, ma'am? No. Oh, okay. Thank you. The next one is for Renee Zaugadelis. Zaugadelis, no. Okay. Thank you. Michelle McLeod. McLeod. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I apologize, I have allergies, I'm not sick. I'm first going to read the letter that I had prepared, my husband and I had prepared for the initial meeting. Some additional information came to light, so then I would like to follow up with questions and comments. So this, I am a resident of Jonathan's Bay. This letter is in response to the courtesy notice to adjacent property owners of receipt of the zoning application for Santoyo Trucks Parts and Sales and Repair Facility. We've reviewed this documentation and we're providing our position on this requested zoning change. The requested zoning change should not be granted for the applicant, Santoyo Truck. The proposed change would be very detrimental to our adjacent residential community, Jonathan's Bay. If allowed, the potential negative impacts on our community include, but are not limited to, the following specific issues: excessive noise from equipment and/or vehicles accessing or moving vehicles to be repaired, hazardous dust and/or fumes created from grinding or cutting of these vehicles, the strong potential for ground contamination from the vehicles being parked, stored on the grounds awaiting repairs, damaged vehicles possibly leaking fuel, transmission fluids, brake fluids, antifreeze fluids, and other associated contaminants would seep into the unprotected ground. To be able to evaluate the needed repairs, the engines, transmissions, hydraulics, and drivetrains would need to be opened, allowing lubricants and other fluids to leak out while awaiting insurance approval and/or receipt of replacement parts. Fuel leaks, both small and large, are common in operations of working on large equipment. Our residences are located approximately 100 feet or so from the Santoyo property, and one of our ponds is only 100 feet further away. Any contaminant spillage and/or cumulative fluid leakage from Santoyo reaching our residential properties will present a hazard risk. Any potential changes in the elevation of the Santoyo property would also result in increased drainage onto our properties, including both natural water and contaminants. The items that we have listed above should clearly show that the granting this zoning change would not be in the best interest of our community and other adjacent property owners. That is my initial letter. Thank you. So my follow-up questions and that I have specifically, going to the coastal hazard, which was also brought up in one of our bullet points about the property elevation having a negative effect. You know, what are they going to do? Again, I'm not an environmental person, but knowing that they're elevating, it would only make sense that any drainage would come our way if it's being elevated. You know, what is the height of the elevation to ours? If it's above, it's going to drain forward to us. They also, one thing I'm not understanding and that I have not heard communicated is what types of trucks are going to be services. They allude to and have both Lee County and Santoyo, you know, have talked about other commercial properties in the area, like AutoZone. Again, those are just working on regular vehicles. Is this facility going to be working on diesel trucks? To me, that is a whole different type of hazard being brought close to our facility. Are those trucks going to be, again, located and parked in those bays? They said all the repairs are going to be done in the bays, but where are they going to be parked while awaiting repair? Are they going to be leaking? Are they going to be leaking contaminants while out in the parking lot? Then again, that could contaminate the groundwater and go towards us. So I would like to understand the types of trucks being serviced by Santoyo. I would also like to understand, and again, in this question form, the percentage of sales versus service of this new location. The request for a zone change would suggest that the service component doesn't meet the zoning. So that's why they're requesting this. And from what I'm hearing today, in some of the comments, is that only manual repairs are going to be done here. Wiper replacements, water hoses, which to me doesn't logically fit in with the large bays. Granted, they're going to be large trucks to do these types of servicings. And if it was truly that they're trying to get more visibility on the retail side, then putting in a retail store wouldn't require this type of zoning if its intent is primarily a retail site. So I would like to understand, what their business model is as far as sales versus service. My last thing is for the Lee County gentleman. He had also alluded to looking at other businesses in the area, other commercial organizations reference, but was it investigated that that these other businesses and what their residential proximity is to their businesses to residential communities such as ours? I think that covers it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Okay, the next one I have is for William McLaughlin.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is William McLaughlin. I live in Jonathan's Bay. Please look at the aerial photo and look at the far upper right, number 602. That is an upper apartment. That is my home. That is where me and my wife live. We will be directly exposed to this facility. And in addition to that, there's a request for deviation outside of the county code to bring that closer to our apartment. Now, no type of buffering or vegetation is going to mitigate the exposure of my home. So take another look at 602. My bedroom window is right up against that wall. The elevation of my apartment starts at 12 feet above ground level, well above an 8-foot wall, and in direct view of the entire facility. Next to my master bedroom, where my wife and I sleep, is our lanai, screened, not enclosed, screened. It is part of our home. Next to that is my kitchen. That's where we eat. That's where we cook, and it is exposed to this facility. Now, the idea that they're going to do windshield wiper changes and oil changes would not require a rezoning, okay? But once it's rezoned, that opens up their right to expand to whatever they want, and no one will control it after the fact. You're going to give them the permit to do it if they want. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about our community here. It's 152 units with an older population, as well as families and children. We were established in 2006, right after Hurricane Charlie depleted all of the materials and resulted in Chinese drywall. Every unit in this community had to either prove that there was no Chinese drywall or what's the word I'm looking for? Remediate. That's it, remediate. Thank you. To a cost of $60,000 per unit, just so the community could get insurance. That was the first crisis that we faced. Then the people who stayed there after that crisis were bought in at a very high price, we encountered the '08 crisis, where the prices and the values diminished by over 60%. People stayed there. They paid their taxes. They paid their HOA dues. They paid their utilities. They were part of the community. They were part of the economic engine where we live, contributing to this whole community. This facility does not contribute to the residents or the immediate community. Their clients are from outside the area being brought into our community. It does not generate a fraction of the tax base that Jonathan's Bay does. It was not going to be a significant source of employment or job opportunities. What's happening here is that Fernando Santoyo is coming to you and asking you to correct a poor business decision. He bought that property, zoned as it is, on March 28th, 2018. Many people have been living in Jonathan's Bay for 18 years or close to it. My wife and I have been here, we're homeowners, we've been here for 11 years. So he's asking you to put the interests of one individual, one business venture that was poorly laid out, to correct it for him at the expense of just these people that are here. There's many other people that could not make it for the second time because they got a continuance and we were dismissed. So now we're trying to represent the other people who could not be here. So after the '08 crisis, we've had other crises such as Hurricane Irma. I'm just going to give you a couple of points, a little history here, okay? And then we had COVID. Most recently, we had Hurricane Ian, in which we are right in the middle of rebuilding our community, an entire roof on 112 buildings, a dozen buildings, but 152 units, including the clubhouse and any other structures on the property. This is an enormous undertaking that we're going through right now to rebuild our community. And then Fernando Santoyo asked you to allow him to place this right next to us after everything we've done. We have stayed through all of the crises. We have paid our taxes. We have maintained our property. We live here. I bought this property with the hope that as my wife and I age, I don't have to cut the grass. I don't have to repair a roof. We're getting older. We're in our 60s now. And I want to be able to retire here and not have to move. Most of the people do not have the resources or the ability to just sell or rent and get up and walk away from this. This is our home. And as your position is, you chose a career of public service. And we look to you to protect the integrity and protect our lifestyle. Fort Myers is busting at the seams. It's a 5-pound bag. And it's just expanding everywhere. And I see it going everywhere, and you know it, you live here, and it is quickly eroding everything around us. And this is going to be right outside my bedroom window. And there is nothing that is going to mitigate the exposure to that. After the crisis, the last hurricane we had, we're still trying to rebuild from that. We have young and growing families here. Again, I said people cannot relocate. The rezoning just accommodates one individual to correct a poor business decision. It would not generate the tax base that we have sustained for almost 20 years, close to 20 years, and will continue. So I think I've just kind of covered what is really, really very important to us. You need to protect our community, our residents, our voters, our taxpayers, our aging population who has come here and lived here for so many years without exposing us to this and opening up the door for much, much more adverse development. I implore you to deny this request. That is the only exception. That is the only result that this community can accept. Thank you very much.
The next card I have is for Richard Lorick. Geraldine Loria, or Lorick, I apologize. Geraldine Lorick? Did you wish to speak, ma'am? Maria Lahina? Excuse me. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. I am a member of Jonathan's Bay. I live on the back side. However, I feel that this establishment is going to negatively affect the air quality. We have a lot of people who have respiratory issues, and even if they don't do major repairs here, the in and out of the diesel trucks is going to create air pollution, which I think is going to be very detrimental. The other thing I have a question about is once this, if this gets approved, is there any regulation by Lee County? Because right now they say that all they're going to do is change windshield wipers and do hose repairs, whatever. What guarantees do we have that a year from now or a few months, whatever, once they get in there and they get established, is Lee County, is there any kind of enforcement that they're going to overlook to see that that's all that they're going to do? Because my fear is that once they get established in here, they've got 3 bays, they're going to be bringing trucks in here, they're going to be doing whatever they want to do, and then we have no recourse. So I don't really believe what they're telling us. I think they're telling us this because they want this facility built, and they're trying to appease us by telling us, oh, well, they're just going to do this minor stuff. I don't believe that that's what in the end is going to happen. So I have a big concern about it, and I'd like to know if Lee County is going to oversee this and make sure that that's all they're going to do, because I don't know if that's even a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next card I have is for Terry Rinborg.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. We need every one of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. The first thing I'd like to do is thank you for your service to this community, and I'd like to thank you for your dedication. You're obviously completely knowledgeable on what we're talking about. Like Bill, I'm here for one reason. I live at 6010 Jonathan's Bay Circle, Unit 301. My lanai, my bedroom, 100 feet, maybe 120 feet from a potential running 550 horsepower diesel engine. No buffer can help me. If I'm sitting on my bed and I want to go to sleep at night and I want to leave the windows open, I can't. If I shut the windows, it's not going to help. The LEED plan 515 is supposed to protect us. It says commercial is not compatible with residential. Open and shut case. The zoning application itself, without anything, just the application itself, is all the proof I think anybody in this room or I need to demonstrate that this is not compatible. If it wasn't compatible, they wouldn't need a zoning change. The design drawing that they have in the picture above doesn't include a garage. The design drawing that's on that presentation does not have a garage. There's a good reason it doesn't have a garage. And everybody knows what it is. They're going to build one. and they need an enclosure. This facility has absolutely no value to our community or the surrounding community. Absolutely no value. They're going to destroy wetlands. They're going to destroy original Florida virgin forest. They're going to destroy wildlife. They're going to destroy flood protection. They're going to destroy my shade, my view. And I'm going to be looking at a 35-foot building that has a diesel engine standing or sitting next to it. They're going to destroy my privacy. I've been there for 8 years. There's 152 units. There's probably 500, maybe 1,000 homes within 1,000 yards of this facility. It's a residential facility, area. It's predominantly for people. And the businesses that are allowed to be here are supposed to be compatible with us. Stores, car dealerships, fine. 7-Elevens, convenience stores. This isn't any one of those. Like Bill said, we went through a hurricane, 2 hurricanes. We went through COVID. And now, as every single person in this room knows, without a shadow of a doubt, that we're in a new world of uncertainty with the political turmoil that's going on in the world. Our kids are scared to death to move forward in their lives because they're so stressed out they don't even know if they're going to have jobs. And now we have one man, one individual that has the audacity to think he can build a diesel truck garage 100 feet from my bedroom. What's he thinking? He's not. He doesn't care about our kids. He doesn't care about our elderly. I'm one of them. I'm going to have to sell my condo, take a $50,000 loss, and move at age 80. There are volatiles involved. There's nitrogen oxides involved. There's particulate matters involved. There's organic compounds involved. Respiratory diseases, cardiovascular issues, cancer. Diesel engines produce a low frequency rumble above and beyond the noise they make. That low frequency rumble vibrates buildings. It vibrates your brain. It makes you anxious. It makes you nervous, but you don't know it. You just don't understand what it is, but it's that low frequency vibrating rumble that upsets your internal well-being. There's also powerful vibrations. What I have today is also a package of information for you and documentation. One is the description of the property. It's from Copilot. And it says that they're on this 10-mile creek area, which is also part of the Bonita Springs Preserve. So there's real concerns there that those requirements are going to have impact on whether or not you guys can make a decision to say, let's let them in, because the environmental effect of the wetlands is now a question. Because I look back in history, and it looks like a lot of this property was CN2 to begin with. A clever way to protect wetlands. A clever way to protect building in a flood zone. And this property is 3.8 feet above sea level. And it contains wetlands. The engineering evaluation that was done for Santoyo in this application recommends that there are 2 studies that have to be done based on their recommendation, because they found waterline tree marks, exotic vegetation. It's unconscionable. It's ludicrous. It makes no sense. It has no value. And the garage not having a design in the documents that they submitted to you is either an oversight or a distinct, direct misrepresentation of their intent. If they wanted a garage, which they do, we know they do. One of the studies that I have that I'm going to give to you as an exhibit for my testimony is a study of how diesel engines are typically left running. If you've ever been to a truck stop, you walk in and get your coffee and you come back out, diesel engine that's sitting there is still running. Diesel engines don't like to be turned off. Diesel engines don't like to start. And most of the repairs and technology and evaluation that they do of a diesel engine to repair it, to figure out if it's just running right, requires that the diesel engine stays running. I think I've covered everything. Lastly, I would like to thank everybody again for coming. I'd like to thank you for your dedication and your service to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did you have information, sir, that you wanted to present to me? Sir? Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure I get that for the record. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next card I have is for Janet Gompel. Is she here? Did you want to speak, ma'am? No? Okay, thank you. John Gompel? Would you like to speak, sir? Okay. Robert Simon? Susanna Simon? Normando Cote? Yes, no, sir? Okay. Angela Delovic? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm also a resident of Jonathan's Bay. The staff report that was issued recommended the removal of 2 uses, automotive repair and service, group 1 and 2, and this was to ensure any repairs are incidental to the dealer and not a freestanding truck repair business. I have concerns that this condition may not be met. The applicant's name is Santoyo Truck Parts and Repairs. Their website states, "To see us for all your heavy-duty and medium parts and service needs." It would appear repairs are a major part of their business. Are they truly changing their business to be a dealer and parts only for this location? They currently work with 3 bays for their repairs. If the new site is only to have repairs incidental to a dealer, couldn't 1 bay suffice? Can plans be altered to just 1 bay to ensure no change to this location for repairs in the future? What guarantees do we have that this site will operate as a different business model to what they're currently doing? Also, under the compliance with design standards section in the application, item F discussed that they won't impose nuisance through emissions of noise, glare, dust, odor, air, or water pollution. How is this being guaranteed, other than simply saying it won't happen? How would non-compliance even be measured? And what recourse would be available? We are a residential area abutting this area. There are commercial areas around us in the form of plazas and dealerships, but none are industrial. Industrial does not belong anywhere near a residential area. All the right things are being said on paper, but it's the actions that count. How can we know that this proposed plan won't focus on repairs as their current business model does? What recourse would Jonathan's Bay have if the zoning change is approved and once the business is running, the conditions laid out are not met? I would appreciate you reviewing these concerns, and please reconsider the staff report and do not allow this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had on the same card was Ed Javalik. Did you want to speak too, sir? No. Okay, Antoinette McLaughlin. Good morning.
Good morning. First, I'd like to commend my husband on an excellent job. My name is Antoinette McLaughlin. I live at 6010 Jonathan's Bay Circle, 602, as right on the corner there, as my husband stated. Before I make my statement, I would like to submit for the record 2 petitions. One from Jonathan's Bay and one from the community south of us called the Forest. We have 167 signatures at Jonathan's Bay and 57 signatures from the Forest. So I'd like to submit that.
Yes, thank you. I'll take those. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Also, I would like to read from statements, read from and submit statements from our other members of the community who are unable to be here today. And I would ask that if anyone was, the people who were here on February 8th, if they could be allowed to speak before the commissioners at the commissioners' hearing, since they were here on the February 8th and were available to speak, but were not given the opportunity. I'm not sure if that's possible.
That is not something under my purview. The county attorney's office could be consulted, but my understanding of the rule is that they would have to speak at the hearing examiner hearing, but I would direct you to the county attorney's office with that question.
Okay, so I'd like to read these letters I have from some of the other members who couldn't be here. The first one is from Beverly Ciano. She lives at 6010 Jonathan's Bay Circle, Unit 502, which is right next to us. She's our neighbor. It says, to whom it may concern, I am writing this letter to express my strong opposition to the proposed zoning change for the parcel adjacent to our residential area, which seeks to permit the establishment of a truck repair shop. As a directly affected resident, I urge you to carefully consider the following reasons and reject this zoning request. Firstly, the introduction of a truck repair shop would have significant adverse effects on our neighborhood, including increased noise, pollution, and potential hazards. The constant noise generated by the machinery and vehicles would disrupt the peaceful atmosphere that currently characterizes our community, posing a particular threat to the well-being of my family and other residents. Of utmost concern is the potential impact of my son's health. He suffers from asthma and lung issues, requiring occasional treatment with a nebulizer. The additional pollution and airborne particles emitted by a truck repair shop would exacerbate his condition, posing a serious risk to his health and overall well-being. Furthermore, the anticipated unpleasant odors and loud noises emanating from the repair shop would impede our ability to enjoy our outdoor spaces, notably our lanai, significantly diminishing our quality of life. Moreover, the presence of such a commercial operation in close proximity to residential properties is likely to result in a decrease in property values. When I purchased my unit in 2008, the zoning on the property directly behind me was designated CN2, commercial neighborhood. Had it been zoned CDP, light industrial, at the time of my purchase, I would have refrained from investing and establishing a home for my children here. Granting this rezoning request would cause a substantial decline in property values for not only my unit, but also those of my neighbors. Consequently, we would face difficulties in selling or renting our properties, as potential buyers or tenants would be deterred by the proximity to industrial operation. It is vital to ensure that the law protects individuals and does not undervalue their assets to benefit others' profit. Given these significant concerns, I respectfully implore you to deny the requested zoning change. Preserving the residential character of our neighborhood and safeguarding the health and well-being of its residents should be the primary considerations guiding your decision-making process. Thank you for taking the time to consider my objections to this proposal. I trust that you will give careful thought to the potential impact it would have on our community and make a decision that serves the best interests of all residents. Sincerely, Beverly Ciano. The next letter is from Mary Gunther, to whom it may concern. While I am unable to attend the rescheduled hearing for Santoyo Truck Parts and Repair, I would like to have my concerns noted and taken into consideration in regards to Santoyo's request for rezoning property previously purchased as CN-2 by them in 2018, Neighborhood Commercial District. I am an owner in Jonathan's Bay and have been since 2012. I am also a Florida resident. My concerns are as follows. Jonathan's Bay is a residential community which has two neighboring residential developments, the Forest and Devonwood. These developments are homes to children, pets, wildlife, elderly folks, and neighbors who have autoimmune diseases. The Santoyo business will subject each one of these groups to loud noises, increased lighting at night, smells of diesel fuel, solvents, torches being used, barbed wire, chain link fences, and the possibility of a guard dog on site on a daily basis. The LEAD plan policy is protection of existing and future residential areas from any encroaching. Allowing this business to reside next to true residential properties will definitely be harmful to families currently living in Jonathan's Bay, decrease our property values, and be an overall nuisance to the communities. Industrial land uses were not meant to exist on this 2.82 acres of land Santoyo purchased. If Santoyo did not do their due diligence regarding zoning at the time of purchase, that was their mistake. They certainly should have been aware of this. Rezoning this property to CPD implies that everything in the area is commercial, which is not the case. These are true areas that are already zoned for this type of business, and that is where Santoyo should be looking. Maintaining the existing zoning designation is not an unreasonable request. For these reasons, I strongly encourage the local governing body to deny the rezoning application. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Mary J. Gunther. The last letter I'd like to read is from Kevin and Ann O'Donnell. Reads, we are unable to attend this meeting in person due to a rescheduled date. My wife Ann and I have for a number of years owned and lived in Jonathan's and are writing to express our concern about their zoning change request to rezone the Santoyo truck parts and sales property from neighborhood commercial to commercial plan development. There are reasons that this property is not already zoned for industrial use, including protecting adjacent residential properties. We oppose this proposed change for a number of reasons, including the current zoning protects residential properties such as Jonathan's Bay from industrial use and waste. The current zoning protects us from air pollution and gross polluters such as diesel trucks that will be idling and left running on the property. The current zoning protects us from noise, smell issues, and concerns about pollution.
Can you slow down just a little bit? The
I'm very
current
sorry.
zoning-
I'm very sorry.
It's okay. The current zoning.
The current zoning protects us from noise, smell issues, and concerns about pollution of groundwaters from diesel vehicles, etc. The proposed 8-foot wall will not protect us from the new industrial intrusion on our homes. We suggest you visit the owner's current place of business, and you will, we believe, agree that this is not suitable to be next to residential condos. The owners purchased the property as it is currently zoned and now want to change that zoning and put residential communities such as Jonathan's Bay at risk. Please protect Jonathan's Bay residents, taxpayers, and voters who have been here since 2006 from industrial pollution and the other risks that come with such use. Would you want this type of industrial business next to your home and family? We don't either. Thank you for your consideration and support. Kevin and Ann O'Donnell. These are those letters.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
As shown, this proposed truck and repair shop and business would be right in our backyard. As my husband said, a lot of people said, we're very close to this building, proposed building, and possible truck repair shop, which to this point, let me get my thoughts together, sorry. What we've heard today is that, well, we're not going to be doing these major truck repairs. We're only going to be doing oil changes, windshield wipers, replacements, and maybe some vacuum cleaners. But the proposal or the application states truck repair shop and a diesel truck repair shop at that. If it's true that all they want to do is oil changes maybe and some windshield wiper repair, the zoning doesn't need to be changed because it is already zoned for that type of business. It's zoned for retail or minor, maybe minor truck repair, maybe minor repairs, but the trucks that they're repairing are not your personal vehicles as they stated. And I'm afraid that if this is rezoned, it's only going to open the door for other possible rezonings that other business owners, property owners will say, well, you've done it for them, you can do it for us. It's going to set a bad precedent. So I respectfully request the zoning board disapprove or deny the zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today, ma'am. That's okay. Okay, thank you. The next card I have is for Karen Butson. Good morning. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Butson, and I reside at 6020 Jonathan's Bay, apartment 302. My husband John and I have numerous concerns with the Santoyo building in our backyard. Currently, we look out our lanai and we see beautiful trees, shrubs, greenery. It's very serene. We watch eagles land in the treetops, osprey eating the fish they caught out of the pond, bobcats strolling along the fence line, coyote hunting for prey, as well as rabbits, squirrels, raccoons, and other various animals, birds, and insects. We purchased our condo in 2017, and our realtor discussed the zoning with us and assured us that it would remain the same. Nothing industrial would ever be built there. At the last meeting in February, Santoyo team was overheard saying they think this is about butterflies and bunnies. But we know it's about more than that. It's about the quality of our life. It's emotional for us. First of all, Santoyo will clear the trees, fill in the watershed, and the surface runoff along the fence line. That channel has prevented our 152 homes from experiencing flooding in both Hurricane Irma and Ian. And our surrounding communities were devastated, but we were safe. Not one of our 152 homes flooded because of that zone that's right there currently. Santoyo, will build an 8-foot fence, and their current one has razor wire on top. We're a 2-story unit, and we'll be able to clearly see over the fence directly into their repair lot. Our view will be of broken down trucks, oil drums, tools, various debris. Not exactly the scenic review our realtor promised us, or the current zoning guarantees us. In addition to the home, or to the aesthetics of our home, we'll have environmental concerns. Santoyo's security lights will shine through our windows all night. The diesel fuel, solvents, and other toxic chemicals will be stored in large quantities. The noise of truck repairs, engines, brakes, tires, etc., and the fumes from these vehicles and chemicals will permanently negatively impact our tranquil environment. They're saying they're only doing ancillary repairs. By industry definition, and I may be wrong, but by industry definition, ancillary repairs include small, dense, and body work, brakes, tires, those things that will generate noise, will generate additional fumes, in addition to changing fluid. So they say they're doing ancillary repairs, and they're only doing the hoses and whatever, but they're building a structure that allows for more. And they have parking spaces that allow for a lineup of vehicles to have those repairs done too. These things will reduce our property values and will likely set a precedent for other industrial businesses to invade our residential community. They said, down the road is this, down the road is that. Other businesses are going to come to you and say, well, next to Jonathan's Bay, you allowed this facility, so we want to put in whatever next to. It's going to set a precedence. We do not want them to invade our residential community. In closing, I ask that you keep this zoned residential as was originally intended, and that you support the citizens of Jonathan's Bay. If you lived here, you would agree. You would not want this in your backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. John Butson. Thank you. Good morning.
So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I thought I'd take the liberty to do that. My name is John Butson. I live at 6020 there, the second building from the right. So our view is going to be pretty much similar to a few of the folks that have already spoken. In this, what I show is, this is a picture off of our lanai, as kind of as far right and as far left as we can see. This is all going to be impacted by us, right? And we're the second building. The poor people in the first building, they're gonna see it right there, right? So this is us. Down below, I took the liberty to go across the street to the current Santoyo facility. I don't think I want to be looking at this. This is what their place looks like now, and I'm sure their drawings and their pictures don't look like that, right? But that's what we see right now, and we really don't want to see that going forward, so.
Thank you.
I think you've heard pretty much all the concerns that you could, that there are out there, but I just want to reiterate a couple of them. The vagueness of the repair thing is what concerns me the most. A retail center out by 41 is not going to impact us hardly at all. I can't see where that would impact us at all. But the building to the back that is going to have repairs in it, that really concerns me. I heard two things. One says it's going to be 35 feet tall, and I thought I heard 42 feet tall. That's well above our building. I think we're about 30, 35 maybe at the top. So an 8-foot fence with some tree lines and stuff is not going to stop us from having the view in the industrial environment. The second concern I have is, it was mentioned before, is the buildup of the property to raise it. That is going to have a negative impact on us. I'm not a civil engineer, but I know enough to know that if they raise something next to you, water is going to flow downhill into you. As my wife mentioned, we've gone through 2 hurricanes without any flooding. I don't think that will be the same if they raise this up above us, and they will raise it up above us, I'm pretty certain. It was mentioned earlier by one of the gentlemen that truck parts and repair is valuable to our community. I don't argue that in general it's a valuable support. I support small business, it's great growth. But this has no value to our community nor any of the neighboring communities around us. This center, in my opinion, should be built out on the Alico corridor, which is nothing but industrial. That's where something like this should be. And the traffic that they would see is already there, right? So those are the points that I wanted to reiterate. And at the end of the day, in that picture, I look to all of you, everybody here. Would you want to live next to this? It's a simple question. Would you want to look out your lanai or pull into your driveway and see this or smell this or hear this? Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. The next card I have is for Chantel Fortin. No speaking. Okay. John Weaver? No. Joyce Lees? No. Fred Lees? No. No. Selena Brum? No. Carol Weber? No. Lorena Weaver? Yes. Good morning, ma'am.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. I just wanted to say I've been a resident or have owned in Jonathan's Bay since the beginning, since 2006. Today I'm here to express serious concerns about rezoning a lot adjacent to our community. Before I express those concerns, I want to mention that in my past, I've been a city clerk, a council member, and a mayor of a small city. I was lead on developing a comprehensive plan, and I was also very involved with HUD, with the sanitary and storm sewer project. I've experienced controversies, like any city, between businesses and residents. I've had to deal with those. I always considered what was best for the city and what was best for the residents. Because it was a small city, I knew most of the residents and I knew most of the business owners. By knowing both entities, the decision-making could be tough because you were acquaintances with all of these people. One advantage I had was that it was easy to drive by or walk around and assess the situation. I could get a good sense of the situation by listening to the neighbors and talking to the business owners. I ask that you listen to our neighbors, all here. I certainly know that with the size of Lee County and Fort Myers, you cannot possibly know all the residents or know all the business owners. But I'm glad that you went to see them, in particular, the business location. With that said, I want to discuss the two entities who we're discussing today, Santoyo and the residents of Jonathan's Bay. First, I will assess the Santoyo location. And to assess it, all I had to do was drive down there and walk around. Their current property is located at 15850 Chief Court, Fort Myers. The first thing you see is the razor wire, and then the fence. You'll notice concrete blocks, quite large, piled up against the fence. While sitting in the car across the street, you could hear the noise from one diesel truck that was parked next to the building. It ran the entire time my husband and I were there. There were various other noises emanating from the back of the building, and you could assume that they were working on other diesel trucks or other truck repairs. It was very noisy. You could smell the fumes and see the junk piled very high. I call it junk. My husband called it doors and fenders. And there were a lot of gas tanks that were piled high, well over 12 feet, some of them. You may hear the security dog jump on the fence and bark. I didn't hear it that day, but I know that some of my neighbors had gone down there at night and heard that dog. So at night, you'll see the bright lights, and you'll see them on all night long, I'm assuming. I wasn't there all night long, but I assume that. You can also assess the surroundings of their current location. It appears to be mostly industrial and commercial, some commercial. I didn't see any residential property near this business, and clearly Santoyo's business appears to be industrial, not light industrial. So if the new property adjacent to Jonathan's Bay is rezoned, what will happen to the residents in their property value? Well, you've heard about some of that today. But I want to reiterate some of the things. I can only assume that what they're doing today in that property will, if not initially, eventually be on that current property. And I wanted to point out those parking spots at the end of that property. It appears to me that they're all semi-diesel truck length. They're long parking lots. They're not for a regular car or a small truck. So the residents will certainly hear the significant noise from this business. They will smell the strong fumes, exacerbating breathing issues of several of our residents. Adults and children with allergies could easily experience severe allergic reactions from the fumes. Many of the residents will not be able to enjoy the serenity of their lanais, as you've already heard. They will look out at the fence and the razor wire. They will not only smell the fumes and hear the noises, but the visual aspects of the razor wire and junk piled high will be horrible. So this junk I'm talking about are the parts. There's parts that they sell or use, or, doors and fenders and all sorts of stuff. Many units will be looking directly down on basically what I would view as a junkyard. The tall, bright lights will reach into their condos day and night. In addition, this type of business will have a significant impact on property values for the whole community. Even having the prospect of rezoning this property has made residents anxious and nervous about what could happen to living conditions, their property value, and some are considering how they can afford to move. The idea of having an industrial business surrounded by residential areas, such as, of course, Jonathan's Bay to the south, Devonwood to the north, and agricultural property to the west is incomprehensible. Skip One, a small restaurant, and the RV sales business to the east bother no residential areas. I personally believe that Santoyo is focusing on the sales aspect of their business and minimizing their repair of trucks. This seems very misleading. If I had to evaluate the request for rezoning and seeing what their business currently appears to be, I would deny this request. I would protect the residents and not create a precedent for future rezoning requests such as this. In conclusion, I have one question. I have several questions now that I've heard their speech. I mentioned the parking spots in the back. Those are clearly for semi-trucks. Will they have parts in both locations? If they say they're going to do some repair in the current location, where are the parts going to be? And they're going to do repair in this location. Where are those parts going to be? The ingress and egress is concerning for me too, because it's clearly going to be built for large semi-trucks going in and out. And I'd like to know more about that. Will the bay doors be up? If they're doing any kind of repair, do they have to close the bay doors? Is it air conditioned? Things like that. Will there be a dog on the property? And how many mechanics, as mentioned before? But the bottom line is, look at your own home, look at your own location, and say, would you want this next to you? Clearly, you would not. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card I had was for Greg Fenton. No. No, thank you. Okay. Okay, so the cards that I have left were originally submitted at the February 8th hearing, so I'm not sure if these folks are here, but I need to call them to be sure. So I've got Jeannie Hicks. Did you like to speak today, ma'am? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jeannie Hicks, and I'm a resident of Jonathan's Bay. Before I moved to Florida, I lived in Ohio and I was a nurse up there. And I think until COVID, people didn't realize what nurses do for a living and how bad it is. I remember working 24-hour shifts. I always worked in a hospital. I averaged about 60-some hours a week, and I saved my money so I could move to Florida and retire. And I dreamed of having palm trees in my front yard and a pool in my backyard. But never in my wildest dreams did I dream of having a truck repair business with diesels running and the smell and the noise and the junkyard dog going on. I sunk all my money into my condo. If I have to sell and take a loss, that's money that I worked very hard for. And I just don't understand how you could even think of rezoning that, because when I bought mine, I made sure my realtor checked to see what the zoning was and explained to me what could be built, and that wasn't in the plans. And so it just really upsets me that they would even consider rezoning when it affects 152 families, and almost all of us are full-time residents. There's not that many people that are only here 6 months or whatever. And it's like, how could you affect that many people for one guy and his business that he can go down the road, you know, where it's zoned for that? I just have the best neighbors ever. And I just don't want to move. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card I have is for Kevin O'Donnell. Okay. Bruce Gasage.
Not here.
Okay. And Nancy as well, his wife. Okay. Richard Lorick and Geraldine Lorick. I believe that we called those already. Okay. Bill Bailey or Kathy Davidson. Mary Shupman. I believe I called Chantel Fortin already. David and Mona McKenna. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, all. You know, at the last meeting that we had, I overheard the Santoyos talking about all these people care about are the birds and the bunnies. You know, you're correct. I do care about the birds and the bunnies. But you want to know what I care a whole lot more about? My friends, my neighbors, my lovely wife, their health, their well-being. We're 9-year residents, full-time residents of Jonathan's Bay in Lee County. In fact, we live so far away from the proposed Santoyo development that you'd actually wonder why we're here, because we're actually barely on that map. And the reason for that is I can smell Skip One frying food in the morning. Okay, and they're farther away than these guys are going to be, and they'd have diesel trucks. So prior to my retirement to our lovely home in Southwest Florida, I worked in the heavy-duty truck business for 47 years, so I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about some of the issues that go on between a heavy-duty diesel truck shop and what one of the counselors tried to compare the heavy-duty diesel truck shop to a high-end luxury Jaguar dealer across the street. I'm sure they'd love to hear that comparison.
Generally, I just want to make it enough. Generally, in our hearings, we do not allow clapping. I understand everyone's very impassioned in this room. When you get to the board hearing on this matter, there's a very strict rule against clapping or any kind of commenting while folks are speaking. So I've allowed it so far this morning, but just, yes, if you could, maybe finger snapping. That might work, ma'am. Thank you. Just something a little less. Yeah, jazz hands, whatever you would like to do. I know where everyone stands, and I appreciate it. But thank you, sir. If you could continue.
As a general manager of a factory branch in Mack Trucks in Canada, I was responsible for 29 employees, new truck sales, which these guys have nothing to do with, used truck sales and repair, parts sales and service. Okay, so I'm well aware of the pollutants that can and do occur around heavy-duty diesel shops. I also was the director of powertrain sales and marketing for Mack Trucks, and I got to deal with the California Air Resources Board. I got to deal with the South Coast Air Quality Management Board, and my favorite was the EPA. And so I'm well familiar with what goes on relative to those organizations and what will impact our community greatly if Santoyo is allowed to expand their operation from the one side of the 41 to the other. Okay, we were a little concerned because under the staff report that recommends approval of the applicant's request with conditions found in attachment C. Well, the thing is what did you actually approve? Okay, did you approve the development of Santoyo truck parts and repair? Or was it automotive parts and repair? There's a huge difference between the two. And to draw a parallel from one to the other is almost fraudulent. Okay, there are major differences between a heavy-duty truck repair shop and an automobile repair shop, or even a motorhome repair shop, as shown in the picture. Big differences. A large component of diesel emissions are particulate matter. That's what you see. That's the soot. That's the unburned fuel. And a lot of the clients that frequent Santoyo are running very old diesel trucks. In fact, a lot of them are EPA older than 2007. So they're referred to in my end of the world as gross polluters. Okay, and they're left to run idle, and you've got the particulate matter that comes out of it. You've got oxides of nitrogen that come out of it. And oxides of nitrogen is what you can't see, but that's the precursor of acid rain. As I said, some days I smell the cooking oil wafting over from skip 1. That tends to get my appetite going a little bit. But smelling dirty old diesels, and again, I was with them for 47 years, is another thing entirely. This is a major concentration and a local concentration of heavy-duty diesel emissions. Cars don't smoke or idle for hours on end. You just don't do that. In fact, probably most diesels, you should turn the key off. Okay, it saves you money, fuel. But the engine noise, I think Terry alluded to that a little bit. Diesels are noisy. Okay, they don't have spark plugs. It's compression ignition, so you get that diesel knock. They're loud. It's very hard to keep that sound down. There's no barrier that they can build that will stop particulate matter, oxides of nitrogen, or brake dust from coming over the fence. Their proposal for 8 foot, maybe even 10 foot, is almost laughable because a lot of truck exhaust is 12'6". So, you know, what good is it? There's also, I guess I have a question, is, you know, we're talking about truck repair, then we're talking about truck parts and repair establishment. What is it going to be? And then the counselor here referred to the work as that would be conducted on the west side of 41 as ancillary. I'll be honest with you, 47 years working for Mack Trucks, I never heard the term ancillary repair in a heavy-duty diesel shop. That's a new one on me. Thank you. And then later on, there'll be no work at all. So I don't know which it is. So if we can have that answered. There are potential flooding issues. I think it's been alluded to. And then, of course, you've got all the problems with the chemicals that are stored on site. You know, like the type of work that Santoyo does right now is a lot of brake service. And you'll notice that a lot of the local dump trucks have got 4 axles. They have 8 brakes. They're heavy-duty users of tires and brakes. The EPA is now currently looking into the illegal use of banned asbestos in imported brake linings. Okay, we've banned asbestos in North America, I think for almost 34 years, maybe 35 years. And now we're importing brake parts from goodness knows where, China, and they'll brand it any way you want. Yeah, you know, asbestos free, not a problem. Boom. You know, so that really has me concerned. In closing, I'm asking the Board of Commissioners to overrule the staff report, because I think that if the staff had looked at their existing facility, that would speak most eloquently for what they're trying to install here. Let me tell you, my favorite job at MAC was as field sales engineer for the Caribbean, Latin America, and South America, where we introduced heavy-duty diesel emission technologies to Colombia, Peru, Chile, Mexico, to help clean up the air, to get the gross polluters off the road. But most of the clientele of Santoyo falls into that gross polluter category. They don't sell new trucks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today, sir. Folks, as I said, sorry, I know, old habit, but we're going to try to cut that out. Do we have Mona McKenna? No. You didn't want to speak? Okay. Rod or Joyce Franey? Good morning, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Joyce Franey, a 15-year resident of Jonathan's Bay residential community. I'd like to address this body regarding the request to rezone the property purchased by Santoyo Trucking and Repair Company from neighborhood commercial to commercial plan development. They purchased this land knowing that it did not meet the requirements for their planned needs. Now they think they deserve special accommodations, even though they did not do their due diligence with this investment. They should take a closer look at their property investors, real estate agents, and researchers. I would not purchase a piece of property in a residential development and then expect to change the zoning because I now want to build a coffee shop or a hair salon or a car detailing business on my lot. Santoyo cites other developments in nearby locations, such as marinas, car dealerships, and RV sales centers. None of these businesses directly abut to a residential community, nor do they provide a danger to health, safety, and quality of life to adjacent property. My guess is that they all purchased property that was zoned properly for their intended business. The present location of Santoyo Trucking is perfect for the business and service which they provide. Why are they not looking for similar locations for their expansion? Areas along Alico and Metro Parkway seem to support the needs for their company. Taking a look at the pictures of the Santoyo facility, you can see that this proposed new location is not acceptable for a residential community. Who deserves to see, smell, and listen to this in their backyard? Scraps, debris, disabled trucks, boats are piled along a cyclone fence much like a junkyard. Rusted old 20-gallon propane tanks are stacked on a rack. Are they really empty? Who wants to be the first one to throw a match to see? Some are parked very near other vehicles, which could create a danger with just one spark. Clearly, this is not the location perfect fit for this business. It's like they're trying to lay down on the bed and try and zip up their jeans.
Maybe they should buy the right size and zoned property. Are there not other properties that would be better suited and properly zoned for their business? Why do they feel they are so important as to disrupt a 15-year-old established residential community with a population of approximately 300 people? What about the diners at the very popular seafood restaurant and market who have patronized it for many years and may be dining outdoors? Is there any way this trucking repair facility enhances the community enough to negate the lives of nearby residents? How many people will they really be employing and servicing? Taking all of this into consideration as you review their proposal, I strongly ask that you deny their request. Thank you for your opportunity to state my concerns.
Thank you, I know, everybody please, thank you. Do we have Ron Frady? Did you want to speak today, sir? No. Is he here? Okay, thank you. Wayne Gunther? Okay. Mary Gunther? Okay. I'm sorry, did somebody have for Mary Gunther? I thought I heard something, okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Tom Lahana? Good morning. I'm certain I got that wrong.
You know, I got called so many things in my life, it doesn't matter.
Thank you, sir. Oh, thank you. I've got it.
Some of this is going to obviously be a bit of a repeat, but I think the situation warrants it. My name's Tom Lajana. I'm a resident of Jonathan's Bay community, and I'm here to voice my concerns about Santoyo zoning application for property that will abut against the Jonathan's Bay property. But before I get started, I'd like to address Mr. Santoyo, and this was said a few times already. At the April 8th meeting, I don't think he realized he was mic'd, but this shows the arrogance of the man and why I don't believe what he's defining his business to be today to be what it's going to be tomorrow. And that is, he said.
Sir, I'm sorry, the civil procedure, the rules of administrative code rather allow her to make objections as to just wait 1 second and let her make her objection. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying, Ms. Montgomery.
Now that's what I was saying, to avoid personally attacking.
It's not an attack.
Okay, thank you.
He made the comment that all of us were here because we're worried about our bugs and bunnies. And no, sir, we're not. We are concerned about that, and it does impact the environment we live in, but we're more worried about our health, our overall quality of life, and damage to our property. From the noise and air pollution this business will surely generate. I want it to be said, the condos in the Jonathan's Bay community are 2-story units. The lanais on the back side are screened in. Everyone downstairs has one, everyone upstairs has one. It's very important to know that the 2nd-story lanais, from the ground to the floor of that lanai, is approximately 11 feet 6 inches. The height of a diesel truck is somewhere between 10 and 12 feet. So when those people are sitting on their lanai, those fumes are going to be lanai height. The noise is going to be lanai height. It doesn't matter what you're going to do with a wall. I have serious concerns about where this is going, and I implore you to look at the picture. Look at where our pool is. It's in direct line with where that property is going to be. It's a nice, peaceful area. That's going to go away. That's one of the few things that we have in our Jonathan's Bay area is that pool that brings us all together. And you look at where that road is going to be. It's going to be coming in and out right along the back side of those units, almost perfectly in line with where that pool is sitting. You asked me to take an oath at the beginning, and I did. And I went through the Lee County plan.
And maybe there's sections I'm going to cite in this that may not apply, but I honestly did the best I can to read the intent of that plan. I'm not citing these because I tried to mislead anybody, and if it is, I apologize for that. That was not my intent, but I don't want to mislead what I did here. Section 34-841C and 2, purpose intent of a neighborhood commercial district is to permit the designation of suitable locations for consumer-oriented commercial facilities of moderate scale. The primary purpose uses provide and include retail, trade in food, drugs, etc. One of the concerns I have, his definition of what this business is going to be seems to be changing. And I have what is it? What's the end result? And I know I worked for a period of time in my past life for the city of Detroit, okay? Not in this arena. I respect what you guys do. I've worked with people like you because we define tax implications, okay? But like everybody, whether it's a municipality or business, the demand to find resources is challenging, to say the least. What can the county do that 2 years or 3 years or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when he closes his existing business and moves it all over, you won't have the resources to administer that, to watch over that. We're going to have to live with the result of that. That's a fact of life because you won't have those resources, not anything of your own doing. It's a fact of life. Section 34-931, purpose and intent. CBD commercial plan development districts as set forth in section 34-612-2. The principal uses